song's called Lying Ways. It's my new single and it's out now. But here's the thing about that melody. I wrote it in 1996 in a tiny home studio in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, at a house belonging to a friend of mine called John. And the first person who ever sang it was a 16-year-old girl called Alicia. You'll know her as Pink. She never recorded it for release. It's one of a number of songs we worked on together when she was lead singer of a girl group called Choice. And this was just before they were signed to their first record deal at LaFace Records. Now, nobody outside of that room has ever heard that melody until now. 30 years later, I've re-recorded it, rebuilt it, and made it my own. But the bones are the same. The melody that's sitting in your head right now is the same one that she sang in that little studio before anyone knew her name. And that's what this podcast is about. The stuff that happens before the world pays attention. The work that gets done in small rooms with no audience, no validation, and no guarantee of anything. This is Built, Not Discovered. I'm Michael K, and today I'm going to take you back to where that song came from. Hi, this is Michael K, and welcome to Built, Not Discovered. Now, I'm going to tell you a story. And to understand where this story starts, you have to picture a very specific world. We're talking the mid-90s, and I'm in my early 20s. I've just walked away from the beginnings of a solo recording deal at Sony Music in London, which is a whole nother story. But anyway, I used my publishing advance to get myself to America, and I didn't have any real plan, just writing songs and curiosity and feeling that there was something out there. So I started in New York and I ended up in Trenton, New Jersey, writing with a R&B group called POV. Now they just had a minor hit at the time and they were connected. And one connection led to another, the way it does when you're in the right rooms at the right time. One of the group members, Hakeem, was the son of Robert Kool Bell, founder of Kool the Gang, a legendary R&B group. So suddenly, I'm in conversations about the Kool the Gang reunion album and meeting JT Taylor, people I'd grown up listening to. And Kool's brother Ronald was across town developing this unknown group, which turned out to be the Fugees. Their lead singer just landed a part in some movie with Whoopi Goldberg. Anyway, all this was happening in and around this small town in New Jersey. And that was my world. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, I met a piano player called John. Now, John was a bit older, and he had a beautiful home studio, grand piano, and great equipment. And all of it was set up in his house. And we started writing together, and his place became my base whenever I was in the States. Now, that detail matters because of what came next. So, Kool introduced me to his cousin Adele Bayan. And Adele was a music manager who just had a huge global hit with a band he was managing called Color Me Bad. So he was doing some serious things, but he started managing me as a writer. At the same time, he was managing 3 girls that he wanted me to hear. A group called Choice: Sharon, Chrissy, and Alicia. Now they were 16 years old at the time, and the world would later eventually come to know Alicia as Pink. Now, the girls would come over to John's house to record, and he'd engineer while we worked on songs that I'd written for them, mostly with Pink on leads and the other girls on backgrounds. Sometimes it was my background vocals and Pink's leads. It was a small operation in a home studio in Langhorne, Pennsylvania. But the work was real. And then there's this coincidence that I still find quite hard to believe. Because John's daughter Jessica was 16 too, and she just happened to be Alicia's best friend. And Alicia had been to that house countless times, just never to record. So when sessions would come up, and it was just the 2 of us, there was already a comfort zone there. She knew the house. She knew the family. And it made for a little bit more intimate setting than your standard studio session. And there's a moment I've thought about many times since. So after we'd had a really long recording session, worked really well on a song, at the end of the day, I walked Alicia out to the yard. And as she was leaving, she became quite emotional, quite unexpectedly. And she asked me if I thought she'd ever really make it. And I remember the weight of that question at the time. Because it wasn't casual. It was the kind of question that someone asks when they've been carrying something for a really long time and it finally comes out. And I told her I had absolutely no doubt. And I want to be clear about this. I wasn't just saying that. I meant every single word of it. Because I've worked with a lot of talented people. And there are very few moments where you feel something is simply inevitable. And this was one of those moments. The desire, the talent, the work ethic. It all pointed in one direction. And as she leaned her head on my shoulder, I remember thinking, this is going to happen for her. There's no other outcome. But what struck me in that moment too, was it wasn't just a talent. It was that brilliance and self-doubt were living right next to each other in the same person. And I've seen that combination a lot since then. It's not a weakness. And it actually might be part of what drives people like that. Now, there was another session. Again, it was just the two of us, where a different side of her came through. I'd written a song called How Does the Loving Stop? And there's a section in the breakdown where the lyric called for spoken dialogue. It was intimate and conversational. And it was speaking directly to the person that the song is about. And when we got to that part, Alicia stopped and said something like, I don't speak on my records. And she asked me at the time if I could get one of the other girls to do it instead. But I pushed back, and I told her that it was exactly what the record needed, and it would sound wrong without it. Now, she did it in the end. But what I didn't tell her was what I was actually thinking at the time, which is that I was quietly impressed. She was just 16 years old, and she already had a clear, considered sense of how she wanted to present herself as an artist. That kind of self-knowledge is rare at any age, and at 16, is almost unheard of. Eventually, the demos did what good demos do, and there was a bidding situation between MCA and LaFace Records. Now, LaFace was the label that L.A. Reid and Babyface were running out of Atlanta. And at that moment, they were arguably the hottest operation in the business. They had TLC signed, Tony Braxton, and Usher. And they were having hits with Boyz II Men and Bobby Brown. They also had recently signed this quirky rap group out of Atlanta that everyone was talking about at the time called Outcast. And the girls they signed to LaFace in the end, and they moved from Philadelphia and New Jersey down to Atlanta, where the label set them up in a lovely apartment to work on the album. And I went to visit, to work, and to hang out. One of the producers they were working with was Daryl Simmons. He was L.A. and Babyface's silent partner, an exceptional songwriter and producer in his own right. And his studio was an experience. He had a big screen and a lounge, and he was playing movie exclusives between recording takes. And I remember watching Shawshank Redemption with the girls and everybody. It was such a long movie. It was such a brilliant movie at the time. Memories. And on one of those sessions, Pink sang lead on a strong melodic ballad Dallard had written called Stay. I loved the song, but it never made it to the girls' album. It ended up on Destiny's Child's Writing on the Wall, with a young woman called Beyonce singing a lead. Destiny's Child was signed to Daryl's production company around that time too. I think they were called the Dolls back then. So you had all these young artists, Pink, Usher, Outcast, and Destiny's Child, all becoming themselves at roughly the same time, in the same city, and sometimes in the same rooms. Yet nobody knew any of them were going to become. The last image I want to leave you with is this. One morning in Atlanta, I stopped by the girl's apartment, and Alicia was already up and already going, singing at the top of her lungs, full voice, no holding back. It was really early, and it was almost ritualistic. And as a singer myself, and someone who'd been working closely with her, I told her to stop because I was genuinely worried and concerned about the damage she might be doing to her voice. And she eased off, but I actually understood what was happening. It wasn't just practice. It was somewhere for everything to go. All that passion, all that desire, all that fear and doubt that she'd shown in the yard that evening in Langhorne, it had to have an outlet, and she was pouring it into her voice every single morning before the day had even started. Nobody was watching. No one was listening. And nobody was about to discover her. She was building herself every day because she couldn't do anything else. That's where it starts. That's where it always starts. Next episode, I want to take you somewhere very different. A small flat in London and a girl who gets brought to sing for me. and the voice that stopped the entire room. I'll see you next time on Built, Not Discovered.